anxious to step through the gate again, Major?
Yes, I am.
We all are.
Would you like us to bring back anything special?
No thanks.
Groceries, new outfit, flatware?
No, just yourselves in one piece, please. Dial it up. Be safe.
Welcome to the Jumping Puddles podcast. Be sure to listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and or YouTube, and follow us at Jumping Puddles Podcast on Tumblr and Instagram, and Jumping Pud Pod on Twitter. And if you want to support our podcast, be sure to check out our coffee. Hi, I'm Sam, and with me are my fellow co-hosts Tor and Ash.
Hey!
Hi!
As the enzyme's effect on the team begins to wear off, the team must make a daring escape from the wraith. Meanwhile, Dr. Rodney McKay manages to outwit his captors and returns to Atlantis to save the day.
Dun,
Dun, dun.
Oh god, we're so scared.
Dun.
dun.
I was like, wait, this is really scary. I mean, like, he saves the day, right? So technically...
Should have been like, what's the opposite of like a dun dun dun, like a ooh.
Da-da-da-da-da-da.
That works.
We would definitely not get that on beat. Are you kidding me?
Oh, no. I'll leave that to
You
Ash.
can't even manage the dun dun dun.
Yeah, we'll leave that in. So we didn't do the dun dun dun. Anyways, welcome to the two-parter of season 2. That was crazy.
Yeah. The conclusion. As Mr. Hewlett said at the beginning of the episode.
And it doesn't feel it like they let the actors do it, and every time someone else says it, but like in this case, I didn't really feel like it was Rodney talking. It was like, yeah, it was David Hewlett and not Rodney. I felt like.
Yeah, it feels like so official. Like they're presenting their look at our finished work, you know.
Well, I always forget too that yeah, this like aired months later. That's the crazy part. Like,
oh yeah,
like weeks later, right? Because this is like part 1, and then it aired like. I actually had to wait like weeks or whatever to figure out. Like, I'm sure like the forums were going crazy, like trying to figure out like what was gonna happen to Ford, if he was gonna survive or not, like what was gonna happen to the team.
cliffhanger.
Yeah, we're not used to that anymore. Like, even if the shows, like, right now, I feel like for some networks, it's like, it's coming back that they do 1 episode a week. But, like, there are never breaks. Also because, like, oh, well, sometimes they do make breaks for some reason. But, yeah, it's not the same.
No, it's a completely different culture now where there's, like, no suspense within a season. There's no waiting week to week, usually. Although some streaming services do try to, like, drop an episode a week. Some don't. They just dump the whole thing on. Which, we don't have to keep this in. I don't know if you guys watch the show. But Good Omens, do you guys know if they're gonna do the whole season in one day? Or, I just feel like it's better to make your audience wait because it generates a bit more. It prolongs the internet life of your show and the discourse around your show, because people will like speculate and stuff, and then once something is over, it's kind of over. In our society, I feel like we just are so quick to discard something that's done. So. Yeah.
Yeah, and you have time to like catch up. You're trying, if you don't watch it on the first day, you're trying to avoid spoilers.
Yeah.
And like that's a whole new tension going on. But yeah, it definitely prolongs the show because then you have like, if you have 10 episodes, you have like 10 weeks that you're watching a show instead of like 2 days.
Yeah. Exactly.
Especially because it used to be different too, like sort of their filming schedule, right? Like they would like premiere in the fall and then like have like a mid-season, like a winter break, and then come back and then like end around spring, and then you'd have like the summer to be off while the cast is like filming, and then you'd again come back to the fall and premiere again. While I feel like it's definitely, the wait is so much longer for some reason nowadays, right? You wait like a year, but every year is when the show comes back, and it's like every year, give or take like a few months. You like can't. It's not just like every winter. It's like every, oh, this year it's winter. Oh, next year it's gonna be summer, and next year it's gonna be fall. So you just like, you forget about it too, especially because they're just binge. They just drop it, you watch it, and then you forget about it for the entire year. And you're like, oh, that show. Let me go. Like I forgot what happened. And then some people don't even like want to go back because they're like, yeah, it's been too long. Like I don't remember, or I don't care anymore. And so it's just such a weird. I hate it.
Yeah. We need to go back. We need to go back to the 22 episode model, the mid-season breaks, the dropping weekly. We need to go back.
Yeah.
Yes.
Case in point, this episode.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of fun stuff in this episode. I guess we can begin with where the episode began. John Shepherd on his knees, as usual, in front of these Wraith Queens. This may be a controversial opinion, but I really enjoy the set for, like, the Wraith Queen's throne room, I guess, on the Hive ship. Like, it reminds me so much of where I used to go to laser tag that I just am so filled with nostalgia when I see it. And I really like the laser lights. Like, they're just fun. And green, which, excellent color choice.
Yeah.
That is so funny because I literally wrote down, why are there lasers in the Wraith Queen? LOL. Such a strange set design.
Yeah.
I just want to know who thought of that.
I think, I don't know, I'm kind of on the fence. Like, I like the aesthetics, but at the same time, I feel like it doesn't really make sense for the Wraith, because they are more like they have like, I like their organic things that they have, like the organic ships that they have going on. I think that's really cool. And they kind of completely drop that in the throne room, which is kind of odd. But I do also like the lasers and like the green, because it gives like a bit of like, I don't know, it's kind of the alien aesthetic. I feel like just the green. You have it with the Borg, and you have it like in a bunch of sci-fi. It's just like green is like, yeah, like green lasers. I don't know, so it's cool. But so I kind of liked it, but I feel like it didn't make sense. And also the thing that John was kneeling on, like this little I don't know, like this little platform thing. I'm so sorry, but it did look like a giant hand pussy. I don't know if you noticed.
I did not.
Oh my god.
What? Really?
What the fuck?
What?
I thought so. I could be wrong, but I felt like it had like, I'm not gonna spell it out, but like go back and watch it. Check it out yourself.
Oh my gosh.
So sorry. But
Yeah, everyone's gonna go back and rewatch this episode now. Everyone's gonna, the students gonna be like, why is everyone rewatching this one episode of Atlantis?
and John is like right in the middle.
Well,
I guess,
that would make sense for the Wraith design.
yeah, yeah. Very symbolic.
Hand pussies are allowed, just not lasers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, now I was just gonna say, going back to the design choices, I would have, maybe they just didn't have the time to like properly like dress the room, because it was literally just the little platform and the lasers on the wall. Like, or I don't even know if there was it her chair? I don't know if she was sitting in anything. Yeah. So, but I do think that it would have been cool to see sort of like kind of like the room they had in Rising. Maybe not like full of food or
Ooh.
whatever, but like sort of like again like just like a table with like maybe like a bigger like chair to like act as like a throne, and then just have like a bunch of like I think it would have been fun if they had like some bones or like just other random stuff there that like from leftover humans, or maybe like they have like some fruits there for the wraith worshippers.
Yeah.
And so I think that would have been fun. And then I don't mind the lasers. I just think it's weird that it's like an empty room with just lasers. You know what? Whatever. I don't know if we'll see if they use lasers again. Now I'm curious.
Yeah, and I feel like the rest of the ship was really cool in terms of like the organic stuff. Like the prison cells were really awesome. I like the web design, and the lighting is really cool. Like the lighting works in there for some reason. I guess it's not as like sterile as just like a laser light shooting from the floor. It's more like shone through the webs and like through the doors. And yeah, I really liked that set. That set was cool. And I think they'll reuse it again later on in the series, which is good, because I'll be happy to see it again.
Yeah, I really like the doors of the cells that are like, and also the way they open, they kind of fold back. It's really, really cool. And they also have different types of, like the first cell they are in, there's just the like webs. And then later, when they are separated in like two groups or like split up into groups, the doors of John's and Ford's cell have like a membrane almost like in between the webs, so it looks, I don't know, almost a little bit aquatic, which I really liked. I thought, yeah. And I think also in that cell you see, and I don't know why I paid so much attention to like the set, but in the background there were all like pipes or something, but they didn't just look like pipes. And we had that before in other wraith ships that looked very mechanic, very not organic. But in this way, in this case, they were kind of, they looked like pipes, but also there was like, I don't know, like something was growing on them, or like they grew there or something. So I really, yeah, I do like that, and I like the, I just love the organic design of the ships.
I gotta say, man, for ranking like wraith queens based off of like hotness, I gotta say this wraith queen pretty near the top. She banging outfit.
Yeah.
Absolute banging outfit.
Hell yeah.
Like I want that dress.
Me too.
In my day-to-day life to walk around like that.
I'm seeing where like the goth is coming from in this dress for sure.
Yeah, in general, I watched this episode and I was like, okay, the style of the wraith, perfect. Like honestly, they're also, I think they're two distinct like commanders this time, and also like I think they're just wearing a lot of leather.
Yeah.
They look really, really cool. And yeah, I'm not a wraith fucker, but I am slowly seeing where the people are coming from. They they do look really cool. I think this thing that still freaks me out is the teeth.
Yeah.
That's something I can't get past. Otherwise, yeah.
Oh, well, speaking of, hello, we were literally just talking about the cells so much. We were going like on a tangent about the set design for so long. The best scenes, in my opinion. Honestly, one of the best scenes in the franchise. Yeah, I'll say it. Because it's just so... If someone asked, like, what is Stargate about? this would be one of the scenes I would show them and be like, this is what Stargate is. It's just so quintessential Stargate, which is when John, Ford, and Ronan and Teyla are inside the cell and they are trying to break out. Everything about that scene is just so Stargate, so classic Stargate. It's so good. Everything from the way, the first scene, right, where like John's like, damn it, like, do you have a knife? And then Ronan pulls one out and he's like, okay, holy shit. And Ford's like kind of pissed because he'd been trying and he missed like twice. And then of course the cut, and then we cut back and you see like 6 knives on the wall. And John's he was having a hell of a time like getting to airports or whatever. And he's just like pulling out of his hair and everything. Amazing scene. My only complaint, I do have a complaint, as usual. My one complaint. I wish we had seen Teyla like pulling out knives and also giving it to like Ronan. I just think that's so in canon for both of them, just to be full on stacked of weapons. And again, I just don't like that she's not doing anything in this scene because I think she should be.
It would have been hilarious if Ronan had used all of them and then there are like 12 knives in the wall and then he's like, oh, damn it. And Teyla is just like pulling something out from somewhere and hands it to him and that one is the one that gets them out.
Oh, yes. Yes.
It would also lend itself to humor too because I feel like John is the only one who didn't have a concealed weapon on him when they got captured. Like, Ford's like, of course, you gotta have one knife for them to find, your regular combat knife, and then one to keep. And John's like, wait, what? We're supposed to do that? So, yeah, it would have been funny if Teyla also had knives on her person. That way he was, like, the only one who didn't. And then maybe we would get, like, Ronan and Teyla, like, lending him knives or, like, giving him some knives to keep as, like a friendship bracelet, but with knives instead.
Yeah! Yeah.
I can, like, hear John's dialogue. I can literally hear it after Teyla pulls out a knife, and he's just like, am I the only one? And he's like, I gotta start keeping a knife on me. Just something so, like, damn. And I think it would have been so funny if in the future we got a little callback and he just had a bunch of he had like 2 or 3 on him and he was like, here you go, or like passing them out and everyone was like, yeah, you learned.
But it would be cool if they were like if one was the Teton themed and the other one a Thosian themed and then a third one maybe just Earth. So it's really like he accumulated more knives.
He really is like trading friendship bracelets.
Although Teyla kind of gets to do something in this episode. There's a power reveal. I don't know if she ever had done this before, but she actually can sense wraith, not only their presence, but their feelings. So she gets a vibe. Like, she could sense that the queen was irritated, angry, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I felt like I was really happy that they showed her her powers. I feel like she's getting better at them, or like better at harnessing it, or just like I feel like she learns how to use them and how to maybe get more refined results when she like taps into the wraith thing. So yeah, now she not just senses them, but she senses what they feel, and also I mean, I guess it could be explained that she just feels like a bunch of wraith suddenly, but she senses that another Hive ship has like joined theirs, so she's really getting good at that.
I was gonna say, yeah, I totally love that she got to use her powers. I mean, it is like a small scene, but you know what? It's more than we've been getting.
Yeah.
For the past few episodes. So again, we'll take the small victories where we can get them, and I'll just appreciate that they haven't completely dropped that storyline yet.
Yeah, I'm just gonna pretend that it's that she is, I don't know, like training to use her powers a bit more so that they can be more useful, and that it's like that there's a progression of how well she can use them.
We're gonna pretend she's been like slinking off and like I don't know, going on missions and like just like working on her like vibe checks. She's like, oh, I feel one. He's so happy we're here because he thinks he's gonna eat us. And we're like,
Being her own Yoda.
yeah.
Ooh.
I really appreciate like her scenes with Ronan
Oh
this
yes.
episode. I think she had a fucking amazing scene with Ronan. Which I wrote it down. Which one was it? Yes. It was when, so, you know, they're in the cells, they're separate from John and Ford, and at this point, the wraith enzyme is like wearing off, and they're like both feeling like shit. And this is when she's starting to get like more clarity, and you can see her kind of like freaking out about Ford. She's like, he wasn't looking good, and like his friend is like literally dead, so she's like, oh fuck. And I just love that scene of Ronan reassuring her and being like, okay, he's like, if this is gonna help you break out, like keep it, but if it's not, like get rid of it. The exact quote is, if it fuels your anger, use it. And I'm just it's just so telling, and it tells so much about who Ronan is as a character and how he managed to survive this long, is that he holds on to his anger to use that and to keep himself like up and around and not to lose himself in this like grief. And I love that, and I think it would have been fun to see more of like would have been fun to see Teyla like take that to heart, you know. I mean, I think she did take it to heart, but it would have been fun to see more of like her. We're always saying like more like angry Teyla, or just like more like emotions from Teyla aren't always great. So, but it would have been nice if she had like really taken on that motto along with Ronan, and like in battle had just like flipped a switch or something and gone berserk.
Yeah, I love that scene. When you said that we're going that you love like this one Teyla and Ronan scene, I was like, is it the one where they talk about Ford? Yes, obviously. I think this is one of the, like, I think we all agree that Ronan is very, like, he's a lot more than a lot of people think or see, that he's more than like tall, angry, strong man. Like, he's very emotionally intelligent, I feel like, which especially comes through in this advice that he gives Teyla, and I really, really love that. And I wonder which route she was taking. If she's in this situation particularly, if she was gonna say, "Okay, I can't deal with it right now. It's not gonna help me," so she like tries to suppress the feelings, or if she was like, "Okay, I'm angry. I'm gonna use it."
Yes, it's definitely more evidence in our Ronan is the most emotionally intelligent of the whole team, and the most in tune with his feelings. I just feel like it was refreshing too. Like, I feel like Teyla in the past has sort of been given the role of guide, emotional guide, sort of being the conscience, sort of being the one who has to be in tune with everyone's feelings. But I'm really glad that Ronan finally got the chance to be the advice giver. You know, not just being in the role of this brash, unpredictable, flies off the handle, does whatever he wants guy. No, someone who really thinks about the way he feels about things and uses it to his advantage and tries to teach other people to do the same.
Yeah, and I also think it shows, because we talked about it a lot, that Teyla and Ronan both have the history with the wraith.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this scene shows how different their experiences with the wraith are, Like, I think for teyla it was more a bit more distant. They were a constant threat, and there was always the fear that she was gonna get taken, or that her people were gonna be taken and were taken. But I assume that it was they tried to get away from them all the time when they felt the wraith coming. And Ronan actually interacted with individual wraith again and again when he got the implant, when he got all that stuff, when he got tracked. And so yeah, I like that there's a little bit of like diversity with experience with the wraith between them.
Yeah, it's almost in a way like more personal in Ronan's case, where
Yeah.
they were like literally targeting him as a person, like using him as entertainment. And while of course teyla has suffered personal loss because of the wraith, it wasn't like they were doing it because it was teyla, you know. It was more of a general thing, whereas with Ronan it was like they put the tracker in him. They were constantly hounding him for like 7 years. So yeah, you're right, it is a very different experience, and it gives him a different perspective that he can share.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was for longer too. I always forget, like, it was like, I always forget the exact number of years, but it was like more than 5, I believe. Like, it was a long time. And considering he's like still so young, the fact that it happened to him so young too, such a young age, to lose like, or to think you've lost everyone in the world and then just to be like on the run and stuff. Yeah, I definitely see why, you know, he has such a hard time sometimes adjusting to life in Atlantis and sort of having trouble communicating his feelings, but like I guess like the feelings that he maybe hadn't used in a while, right? Like his sort of like his social skills and sort of like stuff like that, where it's like he didn't have to use that, and so it just became sort of like a skill he had to relearn type of thing. And I think it just kind of goes back to what we've said many times, but I truly believe it, is that you know, Ronan is the heart a lot of the times, and I think a lot of people overlook that he is the heart. Yeah, like what Tor said too, it kind of takes teyla away from the guiding role, which is good, because I think they kind of like to put her in that role and she gets kind of stuck in it sometimes. It's like, ooh, the calm one, the one that like, you know, like is in charge of like other people's emotions and stuff. And so it's nice to take that off of her. Again, it's also like getting rid of the quote unquote like the mom friend type of trope she gets put into. The thing is, they're all the mom friends. As you say, they all take turns.
It's true.
Because they all have shitty relationships with their mom or dad or both. And so they're like all figuring it out.
What you said about Ronan being the heart of the team is so true. And I feel like not only does that scene sort of make you feel that, but also when John comes back to rescue them from the cell, I just thought it was so cute. Ronan's little hey and his little smile when he sees John. I think it was like so subtle, so understated, but so like, so cute.
He's a puppy.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I think it's time. We jump off the deep end. We jump to the deep end. And I think we should talk about, well, maybe John and Ford, and then like go to John, because John also has a lot of like separate scenes. But I do think, right, we've been sort of talking a lot about how just like how like John and Ford's relationships has suddenly like just like grown into something that I don't think was very well, you know, earned in the beginning. Like they really tried to be like, oh, like they cared, you know, they cared so much about each other, and it was like, yes, they did, but it became like this big thing for John, like this huge guilt thing, and it was like just little out of left field. But I will say that I think the effort they made to like make this a deeper relationship than what they had previously done, I think works in this episode. I think you feel just sad for both of them. And I think you can sort of feel sort of there's just so many great emotions on display for both characters, right? It's sort of like in the beginning they have like, John's just being so angry with Ford and he's just like dismissing him at this point. And then as Ford gets thrown in the jail cell with him and you see that like the enzyme is, leaving his system, and he just kind of returns to that like sad, confused 25-year-old guy that looked up to John. I think John really turns on the it's okay, buddy, like I'm gonna get you out of here, and like sort of like the bedside manner. And I think this is the episode where I'm like, okay, obviously I don't like how Ford's story ended, and I don't really like how they place so much emphasis on just John feeling guilty. I think the whole team should have felt guilty. But I think as the last episode we ever see them like truly interact, that's not like a hallucination. I think it is a really great ending, or really not ending, like a tragic ending, I guess, for these two characters.
Yeah, it's such an interesting dynamic where they're friends, but Shepard is also supposed to be in a position of authority over Ford. And so there's a really great tension between them that is both professional and personal. Because I feel like we've mentioned before, Ford, I think, whether it be his age or what have you, showed some behavior made him seem like he was a little bit insecure about his position, either on the team or just his usefulness or what have you, which would make him act out, be kind of mean, etc. And we kind of see that coming through in this episode also, where he's still so desperate to show that he could do something on his own, that his plan was good, that he can make tactical decisions and lead the team without John's help. Whereas John is sort of falling into the leader role as soon as the mission goes south, which Ford does not appreciate because it kind of goes against what he wanted to prove through the mission. And I think a part of John recognizes that when Ford is coming down from the wraith enzyme. He's like, you have a lot of issues, Ford. Like, he realizes that I think it's not just all coming from the enzyme, that the enzyme is kind of amplifying these feelings. But I also really appreciate that even though he's kind of dragging him, he has that kindness too, that protectiveness of a member of his team, and telling Ford that they are still a team, even though he's mad at him right now, maybe doesn't understand completely what he's going through or what he's feeling, that they're always a team, that they're gonna get out together. And that just shows, I feel like, who John is as a team leader, as a person. He's always gonna look out for his own.
Why would you say that? Why would you say that? I'm in pain. It hurts a lot. But I just wanted to add another line that I wrote down that I was like, holy shit. It's Ford's little, you hate to see me succeed at anything. That had me mouth wide open, shocked, bamboozled. It's just crazy. I know obviously at some point, like, maybe it was like the enzyme talking and stuff, that he's just kind of like, just saying shit just to like hurt John or just to get at him. That was crazy because who did he, like, oh man, that's just sad. Like, who put that in him that, like, like, where did he get this from? and how far, and it just shows how far he's gone that he would sort of even say that to John. Because, like, whoa. Not even, like, being biased here, like, as a John, like, stan, but, like, that's just, like, so completely not his character. Like, it's so out of left field. And what a crazy thing to say. But yeah, it's just sad.
Yeah, it's more of that, like, feeling of inferiority and insecurity coming through, I feel like. But I really appreciate that. I think you see Shepard finally breaking through. You know, after he says that they're still a team, like, Ford kind of dips back into old patterns, and he's like, yes, sir, no, sir, and calling John boss, like old times. And as much as I hate to see Ford go, I really appreciated the fact that he was a team player in the end. Like, if he even went down, which we don't really know, but he went out covering his team, watching their back. And I think there's no better, if he had to leave the show, then there's no better exit than you know, being a part of the team and protecting his team.
He kind of pulled a John Shepard there, didn't
Exactly! Exactly!
He took one out of the John Shepard Page of Suicide thing.
he? Yeah, he did. There were a few things I wanted to say, but you basically all covered it. But I think back to what you said, Sam, about that he is still, like, insecure and kind of the things he says sometimes. I think a lot of that comes from the enzyme, because I feel like the enzyme is amplifying a lot of, like, negative sides, negative feelings, insecurities, and all that. So I think when he says, yeah, you don't want me to succeed in anything, I feel like that's a lot of the enzyme talking. And then later in the episode, I think once the enzyme is kind of wearing off and John taps so hard into the we are a team, we do this together, we get out of here together, we're a team, I think he's able to see that because the enzyme doesn't have that strong of a grip over him anymore. But yeah, I also felt like the bringing up the team and again, it felt so much more genuine than last episode. Because in the last episode it was more like, hey, come back to Atlanta so we can heal you. And this time it felt a lot more like we're actually still a team and we care about you. And I don't know, it kind of felt more accepting this time and yeah, more genuine.
Yeah.
You're so right. I feel like last episode it was more of, like, appeasing the crazy person. Like, let's just say what he wants to hear so we don't die. Versus, you know, when they're actually in dire straits in this episode. And it's kind of life or death. It's more meaningful.
Like, all cards are on the table, right? Because last episode we had so much, like, manipulation going around where John was pretending to, like, Ford's plan and Ford was pretending to, like, take all of them. And so now, you know, everything's stripped away. They're literally stuck in jail. So it's like, all right, there's nothing left but to be honest. And I will say, I do agree. I think this is an ending for Ford that I would have potentially been okay with. My problem is, I think the open-endedness of the episode, like, bites them in the ass so hard. It's something that, again, like we've talked about, like, people always bring up. I mean, there's a lot of things, you know, the Atlantis crew did wrong, right? Many things. But I think this is, like, near the top of the list that everyone always brings up. And it's just so sad because it could have been easily avoided. All they have to do was say, no, he's really dead. Or, no, he survived, and then he comes back and he gets some final episode, and that's it. But I think having it this like, oh, maybe he survived, maybe he didn't. Like, I don't know. I just think it undermines what could have been a really like emotional thread for the team. Because again, like I think a big thing people say is, well, they never go try looking for Ford. They don't go looking for him. They don't have some sort of funeral. They don't have some sort of like moment of mourning. It's just like, oh, he could be out there, and then we never see him again. Besides a hallucination, a fucking hallucination. And they bring him up sometimes, but it's usually to be like, oh, I don't want to go crazy like Ford, or like remember when Ford like went like, and it's like, okay, it just doesn't help the situation. So I get what they were trying to do, and I get they wanted to be like, oh, he could become, he could come back, but I think it just completely bit them in the ass.
It's like, it's sci-fi. If you want to bring someone back, you can do that. You can kill them off and you still can bring them back. We had that a lot. But yeah, Stargate is a really, yes, multiple times. And you will do it in the future. But yeah, I wonder if they left it open because they wanted to have the chance to bring him back, but then for reasons they just dropped it. I wonder if that was the reason, or if they just, I feel like they are cowards for not just like ending it. I don't know if it's a Stargate problem or a general sci-fi problem that they have an issue with just like, ending things. To have like, okay, this character is dead. Just they do that with Elizabeth later as well, and of course for that I have a much more emotional experience. But I feel like it's so undeserving for the character, and also they, by leaving it open, they don't give them a chance to mourn him and to have like a moment to like commemorate him and like have like closure. Like Stargate doesn't really do closure.
Especially Atlantis.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it makes me sad because I feel like they reached such a level of understanding between them, John and Ford, but also Rodney and Ford in a way. Even though Rodney wasn't able to express this to Ford's face, he mentions to Elizabeth that he feels terrible. Like, he totally understands how Ford was feeling on the enzyme, like, because of his own experience with the enzyme. He had complete empathy for what Ford was going through, because he felt it himself. And it feels like we were robbed of Rodney getting to say that or express that to Ford himself in whatever awkward way it would have came out, because we know that they were biffles. So it's just sad. It made me sad that they didn't get there.
That's so true, though. No, they didn't get like an ending. Like, again, like, full praise, and I feel like with everything with Stargate, it comes with like praise and criticism at the same time together. Genuinely. I think John and Ford had such a good relationship this episode, but again, it's like, they kind of robbed us of that ending for Rodney and Ford, and I think they had an equally as important like relationship, and even to have like teyla again didn't really get a moment to, I don't know, like say bye. Like, I really, and like that's just sad because again, they had obviously less screen time than Ford and Rodney and Ford and John, but even then, like, if everyone just had like sort of again like the closure moment, I think a lot of people would have just been like, okay, they would have let that go a little bit. But everyone's still mad about it, which I think is fair. When there's no ending. Like, it just sucks.
Listen, I was absolutely going insane over the Rodney and Ford we got or didn't get in this episode. I don't know if you noticed, but there were two scenes that why I really lost it. They weren't on screen like they were not in the same place in this episode at all. And still I felt like there was such a strong connection. There were just a lot of parallels between them in this episode. There's one scene where Ford takes the last of the enzyme and she like injects himself with all that stuff that is still left. And then it cuts to Rodney taking like this ginormous dose of enzyme. Like there's that parallel of them taking the enzyme, and there's another one when both of them are in withdrawal, and you see Ford like suffering. He's like on the floor, like he's experiencing all this, like he's feeling terrible, and then we cut to Rodney in the infirmary and just like completely going crazy. And it was like these two cuts of like they're experiencing parallel things in very different contexts. I don't know, but I was like, oh my god, was that intentional? Why did they cut it like that? Was it to show like the relationship between Rodney and Ford? I don't know. I love it. Thank you so much. And then later, when after Rodney recovered and he goes to Elizabeth and they talk a little bit about Ford, and yeah, when he says he completely understands what Ford was going through in like for the last months, and especially in like Runner, I feel like, because that's when they met the last time and he saw him, and Rodney Ford tried to convince Rodney of like all the things, all the good sides of the enzyme and that it's good, and that he just completely understood what Ford felt, because while he was on the enzyme, he felt like he was completely making sense, and everyone else was just acting insane. That broke me, man. It's heartbreaking to me. It was heartbreaking because I think through the podcast I really got like a huge appreciation of their friendship, and then I have these two cuts of like the two parallel stories that are happening, and then Rodney like coming down and being like, I get it, man. And feeling feeling guilty for how he treated Ford, maybe, or for not understanding and not being able to understand what he went through. And then they never meet again. Ouch.
Yeah.
When you were literally just talking about some of those scenes, I was getting like sad and emotional, like just getting sad, because it's so interesting that like we found, like rewatching it, we found such a great dynamic that I think is just so hidden underneath, but because we have to watch every second of this with like our eyes wide open, we get to find all these little hidden details. But yeah, it just makes me so sad, because even like imagining like, imagine if Ford had stayed another season, what kind of scenes we could have gotten from that. But even more than that, even if he had like, come back for an episode or two, just to have that sort of time again where Rodney would get to pull him aside and be like, hey, like, I'm sorry, like, I get it. Like, that would have been such a great scene. And then I think it would have been so powerful too, because maybe that could have been the episode where Ford does make the final sacrifice, or Ford like helps them take down Michael or something, and it's his official redemption, and it's sort of like everything that like the team wanted for him. He's he proved them like right, like their belief in him wasn't misplaced, and I think it just would have been so hard. And I'm just sad because I think Rodney, particularly, I just don't think he gets that like great sort of emotional relationship as much with any other character, especially the males. I will say, like, I think he has a great, we always talk about like Rodney and Elizabeth, Rodney and Teyla have like a really sweet relationship that it does tend to be a little more emotional at times, especially Rodney and Elizabeth. We get a few crumbs in this episode as well, but I think unfortunately, right, because we have his relationship with John, which again, huge Mick Shepherd, but let's be so real, those men cannot talk about their emotions for goddamn shit, especially John. So their emotional scenes come off as very like
repressed
and like stunted, like awkward, like very stilted. Like they're just like trying to deal with it and they can't. It's like a giant wall that John's putting up there because it's John's fault. Let's be real. And then unfortunately they play up his dynamic with Ronon. That we never really get that emotional side. Like very rarely we see through that. So it makes me sad that like he actually had like this emotional connection with another man that wasn't like romantically, fueled. It was just like very like friend, little brother, older brother type of dynamic, and they took that away from him.
Yeah, it's tough, especially after we got to see their connection, like as you were saying through those parallels, like the reason they were taking that enzyme was the same, right? It was deep down, at least. It was to protect their team. And so even that thread of connection is something and hurts me inside greatly. Oh, man. I mean, I get it. Like, life is not clean, and when, like, loss happens, sometimes we don't get that closure, but I just kind of wish that there was more of a denouement or, like, a fulfillment of the relationships, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I agree.
Like a little funeral, a little Atlantis funeral,
Something.
where they were like, at least if they were like, we don't know if he's alive, but let's just like celebrate him, type of thing. Like them on a pier, them drinking all the hours out of them all drinking on a pier and being like, to forward.
Yeah, something.
Enough would have been perfect. That would have just been the ending we all at least needed a little bit. It just left so unresolved that I think it bugs a lot of people, which is fair. It bugs the fuck out of me too.
It would have also been a chance to show how Elizabeth deals with loss a little bit. We see it in that would be a mean parallel again, but we see it a bit in Letters from Pegasus, when she's reading all like the messages that she has for the people, for the families and everything of the people she lost. And Ford was in there with her in the room, and at some point was like, okay, are you okay, or are you done? And yeah. I don't know, I feel like, yeah, we don't, like, I don't think she had anything to, I'm bringing her up because for me it's like I know she's not in the team, but like she's a main character. I'm rambling, but since the siege, I guess she has seen Ford again, right? She's only had like reports and like updates on where he is, what he's doing, and again in this episode she also doesn't interact with him, and I feel like this would be a death or a loss that would affect her a bit more because he was one of the main team. So when they have like their little celebration on the pier, she's definitely there.
I mean, I'm sure she loves all the teams, but that team, Erewhon has a special place. You know, they're the special team.
Yeah.
We all know.
We're the favorite.
The most obvious secret on the base, yeah.
Yes, yeah. I mean, Lauren even brings it up.
Exactly.
One time, so it's an open secret.
Yeah. I was gonna say, again, I'm happy that we got a little bit more of Elizabeth. You know, I think we've all been sort of unhappy with her role so far, halfway through the season, right? She's just been very, especially these past like few episodes, where she's kind of just been like the worrier, like the one back stuck at home and like worrying about the team, which is just unfortunate. I mean, on one hand, it's like, oh my god, yes, like emotional team moments that we never get. Like her worrying is so cute, and then on the other hand, it's like that's all she's been doing, is like sitting at home waiting for them to come back, which is just, yeah. But we get some good moments in this episode that I just adore. First of all, everything with her and Rodney, 10 out of 10. When she's asking, like, are you okay? And he comes in, like, freaking the frick out, and she's like, Rodney, talk to me, like, speak, and it's just, like, not working. I don't know, they just have a lot of scenes like that, when her and Carson are talking over Rodney while he's sleeping and stuff, which is, we'll get to that. It's a great scene as well. But one of my things, as we normally do, praise with the criticism, I am so furious. This was the moment. I'm so angry we didn't get an Elizabeth and Rodney hug. I'm fuming. I think this episode would have hit so hard for her to just, he sits up in bed and he's like finally himself, and she just gives him a hug, and he's just like, oh my god, how do I deal with this? And she's like, also kind of awkward. She doesn't say anything. They'd like just move on, but she just rushes towards him and just gives him a hug. Why no hug? Why no hugs in Atlantis? Why no show affection? Fuck you. Yeah, I'm depressed.
Fair. That's fair. That's completely fair. I like was taking the crumbs, and I was just happy when she was like trying to lead Rodney by the arm. Like, that was good enough for me. I was like, yeah, hold on to his arm. Also, Rodney's arms in this episode, okay, we'll get there, but all right. Yeah, I thought that was really cute, and I don't know, she's just such a great, we say this all the time, but it's true. She's such a great leader, especially under, like, stress, and she really doesn't she remains, like, sensitive and feeling, while at the same time, being a good leader and not letting those emotions, like, overpower her decision-making and, like, make her freak out. Like, she did a really good job this episode. Going back to the Carson thing, like, when Carson's talking to her about Rodney's condition and that he's gonna be fine, we're complimenting him, actually stopping to say, like, good work, like, you're doing good work, was awesome. Like, I feel like she's that type of leader. Like, she will never forget, even in the midst of, like, crisis, to thank people for doing their job and doing it well. And yeah, it's no wonder everyone on Atlantis loves her, because I would appreciate my boss saying that to me as well.
Leadership.
Yes. And there's just something about Carson doing doctoring in this episode as well, as a side note, like, just, like, actually healing the sick instead of, like, experimenting on other species and making problems. It's nice. It's nice to see.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. I did love this the scene between Elizabeth and Carson, just like being at Rodney's bedside and, like, again, worrying, but also, like, they didn't really keep each other company, but, like, it's just Elizabeth checking in on Rodney and Carson at the same time, and also telling him to get some sleep. Was very sweet, I thought. And I think we don't see it a lot, but I feel like they have also a very kind of soft and sweet bond, which I think goes back all the way to Rising, and probably before Rising, because, like, she chose him, and we see him on the Antarctica base, like, a lot earlier. So I think it all started there, and we didn't really see it for a long time now, but it's still there, and I think they are also friends, and I really appreciated that.
Speaking of Carson and Rodney, I will say, I feel like this is the friendship, the Carson-Rodney friendship that I'm seeing.
Mm-hmm.
I finally get it, kind of. Like I think this is where I'm like, okay, yeah, they're friends. Do I think it warrants Rodney calling Carson his best friend? We shall see. We shall come to that. But for right now, I think this is just a great emotional scene that they needed. And I think it's kind of unfortunate that I think we only get to see sort of like Carson being so worried for Rodney, right? And I think I think that's the whole thing about their relationship, right? That just doesn't really ever sit well with me. Is the writers think it's so funny, hilarious that like Rodney's mean to Carson, right? And like that's kind of like their dynamic. And okay, they love to do that. They love to just like make characters mean and like call that friendship. Case in point, Rodney and Ronon. But so I don't know. So sometimes it's hard for me to be like, okay, yeah, they're like these are great friends, and the show's telling me like they're besties, and I'm like, I don't see it. What are you talking about? But I think this is one of those moments. I'm like, okay, yeah, and it just makes me sad because I wish I could have, or they could have like expanded upon like this. Like it doesn't have to be this super emotional, but maybe if Rodney was nicer now to Carson after this, or like, you know, but like we don't. It's like whenever Rodney's in danger, then Carson can be nice to him, and then Rodney's nice to Carson. He's like, oh, thank you. It's like, okay, but how about when you're like not in the infirmary? Like, can you be nice to him when you guys are like at lunch or something? Like, you know, so I see it, and I'm happy I see it. You know, at least I see like something they're trying to force down my throat. I think it could have been smoother.
Yeah, and I like that Carson is not like like Rodney. It's very like he's still taking the piss while Rodney is in like he's obviously worried about him, but like he's still, you know, those little jabs of, you know, oh Rodney humor, which I appreciate. Like it's not like because maybe that's why I feel like their relationship is so one-sided, because when Rodney is conscious, I feel like Carson doesn't give as good as he gets in terms of their banter. It's like Rodney and Zelenka also have that sort of contemptuous relationship, but like Zelenka will beat Rodney's ass verbally as well in return, so like it makes sense. Whereas with Carson just like cries. So it's nice to see, even if Rodney is unconscious, like Carson, you know, still holding up his end of their, what's supposed to be their banter. I just wish it also continued when they were both well, I guess.
Brody and Volker, superior.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I say to this, like, Carson-Rodney dynamic. Watch universe, Brody and Volker are superior. I mean, even, like, Rodney and Zelenka are superior. Again, it's because of, like, that. Carson's just too nice. Yeah. When Rodney's just a fucking asshole to him. And it's like, this is abusive. This is toxic, actually. Like, free Carson. Like, he's in a toxic relationship with... Because he just loves Rodney and he's just not getting anything back. And so that's why I think, yeah, Brody, Volker, superior... Rodney Zelenka superior. Although then I do think that they work as a trio, like a Rodney Zelenka Carson dynamic is really fun too, because it's less of like just Rodney beating on Carson's ass. Like sometimes it'll be like Zelenka and Carson ganging up on Rodney, and I think that works so well and stuff. But yeah, we just never got an episode with them three, unfortunately.
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know, maybe my opinion will change, but I just keep returning to like the return. And Carson being, like, sad to not work with Rodney and Zelenka anymore. And then Rodney being like, why are you sad? And then Carson crying. So, like, I cannot, like, that scene is permanently fixed in my brain where I'm like, okay, where is the reciprocation? We need to see it. We need to see it more.
Oh my god, I forgot about that scene. Oh
Otherwise, it's just straight up bullying. Like... I don't know. But Rodney in this episode is fantastic. Turning around his damsel in distress moment from the last episode and becoming, or trying to become, the rescuer was pretty cool. I appreciated the fact that Rodney, of all people, willingly took substances in order to save his friend's life, even though he knew the side effects and all the crazy shit that could happen to him. And it was funny that it didn't really affect him physically like the others. Like, it made him stronger, yes. But, like, does he know how to fight? No. And so, when he was fighting the guys in the keep, or whatever you want to call it, he had, like, one good haymaker, and then the rest of it devolved into slapping. Like, just slap fight. Because that's what I expect from Rodney. I don't expect him to have, like, skills like Ford, where he's, like, taking down people with his legs and choking them out with his thighs. No, I expect slap fight. So that was fun.
I also really appreciated the heroic music
Yeah.
that they were playing while he was taking out the guards. That was hilarious. And also the enzyme really doesn't make you smarter, because I think it actively makes you dumber, because the guards did not pay attention at all. And I feel like they would have under normal circumstances, but in that case they were, just
Too high? I don't know.
They're fucking alien chess. They're like, alien chess? Are you kidding me? Of course Rodney's gonna beat your ass now. Like,
Yeah.
Of course. What do you mean?
The
They
audacity.
didn't even notice that he walked away.
I was gonna also say, yeah, I just love anytime where Rodney gets to show his love for the team. I mean, anytime any character gets to show how much they love each other, it's like a 10 out of 10 moment. And so, yeah, Rodney willing to drug himself is, like, insane. Should be talked about more, honestly. That's crazy. Rodney would never. He really wouldn't. Only for people he really does care about. And his, obviously, I do want to take a moment. I wanted to do it earlier, but I forgot. I want to shout out. I mean, obviously, like, everyone's acting was, like, they were fucking broad at this episode, right? But I think the highlights for me were definitely Rainbow and David, of course. Just absolutely slayed it. Rainbow just, wow, he managed to balance, like, the absolutely fucking crazy Ford, and then also the Ford coming out of, like, his drug trip so well, to the point where it really did feel like he was a completely different character after he was, like, you know, the enzyme was out of his system. I was like, oh my god, like, he brought Ford back in just such a crazy way to me. And then obviously David, yeah, that is Rodney on a drug trip to a T. Like, my poor man was suffering, and poor David had to just, who knows how many times they filmed that of him just going absolutely balls to the wall crazy. He did that so well. So yeah, those are the two standouts.
Yeah, I love that gate room scene. He's all sweaty and talking even faster than usual, which who thought that was possible? And then when he's asked if he's okay, he's like, yes. I mean, I don't know. It was just like my adult life, for real, summed up in a sentence. Great.
That scene is... Sorry.
No, go ahead.
That scene is so funny, because Elizabeth has no clue what is going on, and it's just a rambling, like, incoherently rambling Rodney there, walking in circles, talking about a few guards he took down, like, 15 times he mentions that. And Sam, I think you mentioned it earlier, but at one point she asks him, "Are you insane?" And he says, "Now that I've taken the enzyme, yes." And I just... So he still, he has, like, a little bit of clarity still, but also he's just, like, his thoughts are going a million miles an hour.
That brings up an interesting question that I had. when he was in the infirmary and he was like saying mean things to Carson, he mentions the fact that he gets to go off world and like practice science outside of Atlantis. Is that like a hidden like love of Rodney's? Like, is he actually like, does he actually like to go off world and be on an off world team? Like, is it something? I feel like yes. Like, I feel like he loves being able to leave the base. Like, he would never admit it that way and be like, oh, I want more time in my lab and blah blah, but like to be able to actually go out and like do sciencey stuff on the fly in danger situations, like I think he really, it's a thrill for him.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I know exactly what you said. It's a thrill. I think he gets to sort of have to use his mind a lot of times to get out of situations like quickly, and I think it just makes him. And I think Rodney enjoys it as well. Like, you know, everyone's always like, why would you take like your most important like scientist like outside and stuff like that? It's because Rodney wants to go. Let's be so real. If he didn't want to go, he would not be going. I think I can imagine like Rodney like coming up to Elizabeth like on the first day after rising and being like, hey, Solo, put me on a team. And she's like, what? And he's like trying to whisper like, and she's like, no, you're gonna stay in the base. He's like, no, like, I want to go. Like, I want to go get some water with him. So, yeah, what Rodney wants, Rodney gets.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like at first they had to drag him to another planet, like the first 1 or 2 times, and after that, yeah, I think it was gradual. But then, and yeah, he has a hard time admitting it. Like, oh, he doesn't want to admit that he likes it, but yeah, he loves it. But I feel like it's like, I don't know, it's like putting a baby otter into water for the first time. They hate it. They absolutely hate it. But as soon as they get a hang of it, they like it's nature to them. So I feel like that's Rodney and going off world.
And then, yeah, going back to David's subtlety in his acting ability, like I feel like we got the scope of Rodney this episode. We got like one extreme, like the hyperactive stuff, and then we got the other extreme at the end of the episode, which I really love, is when he's on the Daedalus with Caldwell and they're mounting a rescue for the team. Just the subtle shifts in expression when he figures out that the dart, one of the darts that is firing on the other darts is Shepard. And then again the shift in expression when he figures out what Shepard's trying to do to get the wraith to fight each other, which smart Shepard this episode completely. And then again, his shift when he thinks that they all exploded. His expression when he thinks they're all dead. Yeah, so I just thought that was really... I liked his emotional journey through facial expression only in that part of the episode. Really strong.
Yeah, and they kept going back to him in that scene when all of that is happening. They always have a shot of Rodney reacting, so I was like,
yeah,
it's important.
Mm-hmm.
We got our little mix-up crumbs for the episode.
We sure did.
Speaking of John, let's go to John. There's so much going on in like John's like a random like one-off little storyline. I gotta say, like, it just cracks me up that he's like, he loves Ferris wheels, but he's scared of clowns. So do you just like avoid what do you do at carnivals then, John? When do you ever get to ride a Ferris wheel besides at a carnival? So you're just like shitting your pants like every time you walk around a corner and you might run into a clown. Then you're like having the time of your life on a Ferris wheel. Like, did he just give him the most like random facts about his life possible? and it just makes him sound crazy. And again, just like his little like random lines. I don't know. I kind of forgot which part this is, but I wrote down that apparently John said we're peaceful too. Which I think he's talking about.
I gagged. I was like,
Expedition. We're peaceful too. Did you know that? Oh, sweet honey child. He really believes that.
bitch, you are not.
Oh, they're delusional. Oh, look at them. Anyways, back to John's silly little adventure with this girl.
Oh yeah.
Okay, let's just dive into it because I think this is the funniest thing. Everything about that those interactions are just kind of hilarious. I think the girl, right? I don't remember her name exactly.
Nira.
Nira, yeah.
Nira. Oh, she has a really cute name. She really, her mind was so big because she did all the classic moves to get all these, like, that would have worked on most men. And that's what I'm saying. Like, the John is gay agenda is just really growing with every episode. It's kind of crazy. Because a lot of this, I was like, yo, I'm like, those are some great moves. When she did the whole, using the classic for warmth. I'm cold. Like, using the classic, like, oh, and then making herself to be all small and being like, I just need a strong man to protect me. Like, she was really working it. And I was like, again, like, this would have worked on most men. But I think it's just funny that John, like, got immediate, like, warning bells. And he was, like, just so uncomfortable throughout all that interaction. When she was sleeping on him, he was just like, get off me. Like, he did not. He didn't even give her jacket. He was just like, you had that shit on him. But he was like, just like, please don't get off. Like, yeah. So it was just funny to watch. It was a little cringy, a little bit, just because I could see her trying so hard. And obviously, like, that's the point, is that she's trying to, like, you know, like, seduce him or whatever, you know, and to get him to let his guard down, you know. And I'm not criticizing the script or anything, but, like, it's supposed to be kind of like, oh, like, something's wrong here. Like, she's too sweet. She's too, you know. And so, yeah, but I just think it's so funny that he was just so uninterested. And honestly, most of it, he's kind of terrified.
Yeah, he doesn't know how to handle that situation. Also, one thing that creeped me out in particular, I don't know if that was intentional again, but it's at the end of the conversation when they are just like, she's huddling up against him, and she puts her hand on his chest, like pretty much like the way a wraith puts their hand on a chest to, yeah. I was like, that is weird. I never noticed that before, but I was like, because I knew that she's a wraith worshipper, obviously. I was like, was that intentional, or was it just like, oh, I need more warmth or whatever? But yeah, that was creepy.
Yeah, historically, helping people being held prisoner on a wraith ship has never ended well, and this time is no exception, and in the future it will also end a similar way. Yeah, it was so uncomfy. Like, the whole situation was so strange. And yeah, like, I was like, what's happening here? Does he have no game? Is he, like, not interested at all? Like, what is happening? And then the reveal where he was like, he knew she was a plant was so good. Another Shepherd being smart moment in this episode. He was great. Like, there was that. There was the whole, like, getting the Hive ships to fight each other thing that he did at the end of the episode. Like, just overall, peak performance for Shepherd.
Yeah, what you said earlier, like, he tries so hard to be, like, this suave, like, ooh, like, I get all the women ever. Everyone's, like, puts that on him. Like, oh, look at him, he's so cool. Like, he gets all the alien girls. And then he's just, like, this girl is basically, like, giving him, like, kiss me now vibes. Or, like, I'm literally so into you vibes. And he's so uncomfortable. He has no idea what to do in the situation. And just makes me giggle because again, it's like the whole like, ooh, look, he's like the Han Solo type, and he's just pacing around the jail cell basically and having like a mental breakdown. And he's not even thinking about her. He's genuinely like, how do I get my team out? He's like, oh, is Ford gonna die? All this stuff, and she's like, warmth, and he's like, like, no, bitch, I got other things to worry about. But he's nice and he lets her cuddle up, and then, but speaking of though, I also wanted to say, wraith worshippers got introduced to them this episode, and I think that's a great piece of like lore and just like world building. I think it's brilliant.
Yes, it's a great piece of lore. I think it's funny that John is the one to say wraith worshipper, and then they just run with that term. They never, like, as if he knew, or if, I don't know if they didn't have a word for that before, but I just was like, oh, so we're keeping that, and he came up with that himself. Okay, anyways, and yeah, it's super creepy. And I'm not sure, I didn't go back and check, but I felt like in that scene where they are revealed as worshippers, Nira has like wraith symbols, like similar to the tattoos on her clothes. I'm like, did she have those before? Because that would have been kind of an obvious sign, but I don't think she has. And I'm not entirely sure if that was really the case, but I was like, it kind of looks like some sort of wraith art and symbols.
Huh.
Oh wow, I had no idea. That'd be really cool though. That'd be cool if like she changed into it after, or like it just became more like apparent. I do. Obviously, we're gonna see more of like the wraith worshiper stuff and whatever. But I think it's such a cool piece of sort of just everything they built so far. Like to have like, you know, because it's on the flip side, right? It's kind of like the wraith are like the inverted version of the ancients, right? And so again, you have ancient worshippers all over the place. You have everyone who, you know, worships the ancients all the time or who think of them as gods. And then to have it on the flip side, I think is so interesting because again, you know, going back to the whole, oh, the wraith like want to kind of be like their parents almost, like it's the child overtaking the parents, and wanting to be like them and also not at the same time. And I think it's just so, it makes sense to have like a perverted version of like the ancient worshippers and to have wraith worshippers. And you know, we've talked a lot about like which are worse, right? I think I had a whole discussion like ancient worshippers versus like wraith worshippers. But yeah, I think it's fun, and I think obviously we're gonna get more later. But I would also love get more, just of like how they came about. What do they do? Do they just like lure people in? Like, what are their duties as wraith worshippers? I would love to know.
Yeah. Also, so I think what sets them apart from like ancient worshippers is that wraith worshippers or wraith rule or demand their followers to like, no, what am I trying to say? So wraith get their respect, in quotation marks, from their worshippers through fear, right? Because like if you don't worship them, then they eat you as have you like have an afternoon snack or something. But what do the wraith get from people worshipping them?
Oh, you know, it's so interesting because I just kind of feel like, again, going back to the whole like they really just hated the ancients kind of thing, like the parent or the child overtakes the parent, you know, kind of like this. If we base it off of like that dynamic, I think it kind of just like maybe makes them like valid in their own eyes. I think going off of right, if they really, you know, sort of like came, quote unquote, like kind of from the ancients and kind of like grew up like resenting them, or like, you know, expanded as like a race as they grew and like, you know, mass numbers and stuff and started this whole war. I think it could be sort of like a sense of like almost like a we made it type of thing. Or, like we made it to the top. Like now we have people that worship us just like they used to do to the ancients. And like they see us as gods now. You know, and kind of seeing like a sick sort of getting a sick sort of pleasure from being like we took their old gods down. And now they're looking at us in that same light. That's how I can kind of see it sometimes. Because I mean, they wouldn't really need to keep them around, really. Again, like yeah, I said, like just for like snacks, you know. But you have snacks up and down this ship. You have people in like the cryo, whatever, like being frozen for. You got a frozen snack, which is perfect on a hot day. Okay? Like you get, you know, you have a refrigerated snack. Don't you want a real one? You know. So that's kind of how I rationalize it, I think. Because besides that, like, what the hell do they do for them? Nothing.
I guess they kind of work as bait too. In a way, I mean, it didn't work this time, but normally, they could kind of be used to like lure humans if they really need it. I mean, they don't. I feel like they don't really need it, but could be something.
Like, I guess just like information too. It's good to but I mean, I guess we don't even really. Oh god, we're going so deep into this. But I was like, Earth Worshippers like really are there? Like, do they have like a standard number on like each ship or whatever? I really don't know. But like, obviously, like, you wouldn't have like if it's just like the information thing, you'd have like 2, right? You'd have like 2 per ship or something. You wouldn't have that many. But that's why I'm kind of feeling like it has to be like something like besides it's like the regular like, oh, we need someone to, you know, clean the bathroom, or, you know, like we need like some slaves over here, you know. That's why I'm thinking it's kind of like something more. But I think it's a mix of both. I think just to have humans on their side and to be able to be like, look, like to entice other people into like their weird cult and be like, look, like you can get, you know, like you can live forever, or you can do all this stuff. I think it's interesting too because I can't imagine like how the team was feeling, because at this point they don't know that the wraith can give back life. They would just be like so fucking confused. Be like, why the hell are there like actual like people that worship these people? Like, what are they getting in return?
True. And like later on, don't they establish like the act of receiving the life back is actually addictive or something? Like it's similar to the wraith enzyme in that way. Yeah, so then I guess there's that.
I was gonna say, let's talk about the last scene. We've completely skipped over that scene.
Oh yeah,
but I guess we leave it for last. I just there's so many like little moments. I think the last scene. One thing I love is how happy Elizabeth is.
Yeah.
To see everyone and just so happy that like safe, like they're good. I also
Elizabeth and Ronon. There's a tiny moment in the last scene as well when they are all in the infirmary, and they're both in the background, and I think it's when Rodney is like, "Hey, why are you not dead?" or something like that.
Yeah.
And Ronon and Elizabeth just look at each other and kind of smile, and I was like, "Oh, that's so cute." I'm like, "Oh, Rodney. He's back to his old self and just like pretending not to be worried and happy to see them all." I thought it was really sweet.
It's like they have a mutual understanding of Rodney-isms.
Yep.
Silent communication, my weakness.
Well, I was also gonna say, there's that scene of, you know, all of them are like talking in the infirmary about Ford and stuff, and John is talking about how he goosed up the queen or whatever, and it just showed a shot of Rodney, and Rodney looks so disturbed, and I was like, I can't tell. He's totally jealous of the queen. I think he's he's like disgusted with himself. He's like, why am I jealous of a wraith right now?
John's Riz
But yeah, John's Riz is insane.
with the wraith.
He does nothing, and every single creature and human and alien is like,
Creature.
John Shepherd.
I cannot.
Inchvale swag Riz.
It's true. It's true. That's what it is. His like he's such an asshole too. His little cheeky sorry we're late to Elizabeth when they come through the gate. Like really. Like she wasn't sweating, thinking that you guys blew up 2 seconds ago.
God, when your boyfriend's a total loser.
Yeah.
That's John's energy.
Yeah.
When he's a total loser.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone is like, oh, I can fix him.
I can make him worse.
Yeah.
I don't want to fix him, baby.
I can fix him, but I can fuck him.
There we go.
Real. That's like half the people on Atlantis. That's what they feel about John.
Oh, yeah, all of them.
They're like, oh my god, he's crazy. But for one night.
For one night, he can be my crazy.
Mhm.
Yeah.
There you go.
Like someone's like, oh my god, I have a crush on John. Everyone's like, don't do it. You're gonna like hate yourself. You're gonna be stuck in this loop. You're gonna be worried sick about him when he comes back from these missions like half dead. They're like telling like they have like an intervention every time. They're like, do not fall in love with John Shepherd. Like a 10-page guide on how to fall out of love with him. They're like, he's lazy. Like he will not text you on your birthday.
He's so emotionally constipated.
Yeah.
Will not talk about his feelings.
Never.
Not even on the deathbed.
I know Caldwell was in the episode, but the only note I made about him was I love the fact that he has like a 3D map on the Daedalus where he can like move magnets and like make tactical moves. That's the only thing I wrote. That's all I got.
What he does in this episode, I'm like, okay, he saves the day, yeah. Which is again another Deadless
Wait,
saves
does
the
he?
day.
But does he really though?
He doesn't really do anything.
Oh,
Does
he's
he?
just kinda there.
Yeah, he's
there.
Yeah, that's
He's
I
always
didn't
there.
write that down, but that's what I thought. He's just there. He's trying to save them, but in the end, it's John who saves them.
Yes.
I guess to be honest, I think it just kind of like because so far I think we've only had one, right? I think so far we've only had one official Deadless comes to save the day type thing. I think.
I
think
just
we've
keep
only had one.
like they're always there, so I'm always thinking like they do something when they don't.
Yeah, that's what I think it is. It's because they're just there for no reason that you're like, oh, they're there to save the day. Like it wouldn't have made any difference if it was like just Rodney and Lorne in the jumper. Like,
Yeah.
would have had
Yeah.
the same outcome.
But another thing that I wanted to mention about that is not the Daedalus, but the space battle.
Oh yes.
That was beautiful. Like holy shit, everything looked fantastic. The two Hive ships, the dart, the camera sometimes following the darts plural. The camera sometimes following the dart. Then the way they started shooting at each other. The inside of the dart when we see like John flying it and like seeing all the symbols, that look super cool, and kind of the graphics that he gets because he's basically flying blind, I feel like.
Which
Or
is
like
crazy.
yeah, 90% visual impairment or whatever. But it's really, really wild that he manages not to crash into one of the Hive ships. Yeah, no, I thought it was a really, really cool space battle. That's all I wanted to say about that.
But yeah, that is it. Shall we pass it over to Ash for the Bechdel test?
Oh.
No.
Jesus.
All of this was frustrating. Again. Fail. I'm trying to think, but I'm pretty sure it fails. Like, the only time 2 women are on screen is when the Wraith Queen is there and Nira, but I don't think they have, like, a conversation.
It hasn't passed since Instinct. That's crazy.
Oh. Yikes.
Anyways, back to me for the notes of the day, the behind the scenes. Now, we actually have some fun ones. So, we'll do the basic ones first, and then I'll talk about the ones that I have. So, directed by our good friend Martin Wood, of course, and written by Carl Binder, who has done some SG1, and then he did a lot of Atlantis, and he does do a little bit of Universe, but he mostly did Atlantis, and we've seen him a lot recently. He did Aurora, Condemned. He's been popping up. It's actually revealed that using drugs to treat the symptoms of the Wraith enzyme withdrawal actually lengthens the process.
Oh.
So, according to this, Rodney should have gotten a lot worse.
Huh.
Why they wrote themselves into a corner, I will never know. Thank you for that. So, again, so far, the total number of Wraith Hive ships destroyed is now at 7, since the Pegasus team has arrived, I think.
Wow, that's a lot.
Wow.
More than I
That's
thought.
not bad.
So this is a heartbreaking fact that I almost cried. This is the only episode where John calls Ford Aiden by his first
Oh
name.
no.
Aww.
Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Ouch.
That's so weird because, like, he calls everybody else by their first name. Like, he calls Rodney McKay sometimes, but, like, he says Rodney a lot, too. And he always calls Ronon, and he always calls Teyla. So it's like, is it a military thing?
But also, side note, we can cut this. Teyla calls John Colonel once in this episode, which really surprised me. Because I remember when in the beginning of the season, we were talking about that he was Colonel now. And that it was kind of weird
Yeah.
to have, like, this change. And, yeah. So I was surprised to hear Teyla call him Colonel. At least once.
Because back in the day, remember in season 1, they always kept saying Major instead of John.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This season, they started calling him John. So I guess that is interesting that she still kind of kept up, like sometimes calling him Colonel and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so all of the scenes on Ford's planet are actually filmed during production of The Lost Boys. So they actually filmed them at the same time. So everything on the Lost Boys planet was directed by Brad Turner, while everything on the Hive ship in The Lost Boys was directed by Martin Wood.
Oh,
It was
that's
fun.
fun.
They had
Huh.
2 different directors for 2 different parts.
It was pretty seamless, so they did a good job.
Yeah. Did.
So this episode was nominated for a Gemini for
Oh.
Best Sound in a Dramatic Series. Ooh.
Oh, nice.
We talked about the Wraith dart sounds and stuff, so I guess the industry also noticed as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, in Stargate Atlantis, the Third Path, which is part of the Legacy continuation series, it's discovered that Ford did survive the battle. He managed to escape the Wraith who were after him and steal a Wraith dart in the confusion of the battle. But due to his lack of knowledge on how to actually pilot a dart, Ford crashed on Edowin, which is where he was found by the Travelers shortly after going into withdrawal. Apparently one of their doctors was a Wraith worshipper and thus knew how to treat the Wraith enzyme withdrawal. Although it took about a year for him to recover from it. Afterwards, he went on to fight the Wraith under the name Wolf
Oh.
being found by Atlantis and returned to Earth, where Ford, his wife, his son, were reunited with his cousin and grandparents.
Stop.
Wait, what?
Who wrote this fanfiction?
Apparently,
He's
it's
married?
Wow, he couldn't outrun the compulsory heterosexuality either. Just not.
What?
come the name Wolf. No one else is like
What
Wolf.
the fuck?
That's the name you chose.
Yeah, from that
Fight the
point on,
wraith.
it was like. Before that, I was like, okay, that's cool. I mean, travelers, I don't know. But from that point, I'm like, what is happening?
I'm gonna be so honest. I literally did not remember who the travelers were until right this second. I was like, oh wait! I was literally like, oh, I guess it's like some new group that's only in the books.
No.
My bad. That should be pretty telling on how terrible the plotline was.
You loved it. I remember.
I love the travelers.
Mm-hmm.
Can't wait for what's her freaking name?
Oh God.
Anyways, yeah, that is an ending.
That is wild. Like,
Yeah.
the background they gave him? I wouldn't.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sorry, but he's a child.
It's so like what?
Anyway, so I did a little bit of research just for my own curiosity because we were talking about it so much. I was like, let me just get the facts down straight. So I went through all of season 1 and all of half of season 2 to find these scenes and to see how much time does each character have with Ford. Okay, now this might not be the most accurate. I did leave some, if they're not talking about each other or they're not like directly interacting, I didn't really count it. But found some very interesting things. So let's go through it. John and Ford have 13:55, so it's 13 minutes 55 seconds worth of screen time. Rodney and Ford have 10 minutes and 32 seconds of screen time. Ronon and Ford have 2 minutes and 22 seconds. And Teyla and Ford have 2 minutes and 35 seconds. Okay, so let's just run through that really quick. Ronon and Ford have just a few seconds less screen time together than Teyla and Ford do in an entire season. And Ronon and Ford had like 3
Half.
episodes together.
Yeah, less than half.
Doesn't
Holy
seem
cow.
right.
How? Okay. Yeah, if that was pretty very depressing statistic I found. And then something super interesting that I noted is that both John and Rodney have around 4 minutes of screen time with Ford before his turn in the Siege Part 3.
Huh. So you think
What?
they were trying to like establish something before it all went?
I mean, I just think it's interesting because I think that it just shows like that they had they just had like the same amount of like friendship and the same like they were both close to him before the siege. And that's my thing that makes it so interesting is that, you know, John and Ford have 13 minutes, almost 14 minutes, and then at the end Rodney and Ford have 10 minutes. And so it's just interesting that before they have around 4 minutes, it's the same amount of time, but they put so much work into establishing John and Ford's dynamic in season 2 that obviously they leave behind a little bit of the Ford and Rodney dynamic. It's just fascinating, I think.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. And again, obviously the huge difference between fucking John and Ford and Teyla and Ford, goddamn. 14 minutes versus 2.5 is kind of crazy. And I think, sorry, last little numbers game. I was gonna say, I think I don't remember exactly. Ashley, if you can help me out, how much is the Teyla and Elizabeth? Sort of how many scenes? I think it's like 19 or 20 minutes. of
Oh,
Teyla and Elizabeth scenes.
Oh, that's a good question. I'm not entirely. Is it just 20 minutes?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
this
let's
is
see. Let's see
depressing.
first.
It's
It's
possible.
21 and 24 seconds. Crazy. And John and Ford have 14, and it's a season and a half. And Teyla and Elizabeth have 21. 3 seasons plus a little bit of 4 and 5.
Wow.
I hate it here. I'm telling you, fem slashers have it so hard. It's so
They do.
They
Especially for
do.
the early 2000s. Anyways, on that super happy, super fun, light, positive note, we shall spin it over to Mrs. Tor for the Fic Rec Corner.
Hello, hello. So, fic rec for this week, the Hive. I thought, in honor of the fact that the Daedalus, okay, so she was there, but she didn't really help at all. I would recommend a fic where the Daedalus was not in the equation. So, this fic is called In This Era of Liberty by Chandri. And of course, we will link in our little description box. And this fic is basically a canon AU where it explores what would happen to the expedition if 5 years in, so like season 5 time, the Daedalus was no longer in commission. So a very more separated society from Earth, and a lot less quick fixes. And it's very good. So go ahead and read it if you, like us, are always sort of begrudging the fact that the Daedalus is always there to be the Deus Ex Daedalus and save the day.
How long is it?
It is approximately 35,000 words.
Yeah.
Oh.
So there's a lot of world building happening.
Nice.
It's a little bit of light reading.
Just a little bit.
Anyways, let's talk about the rating of this episode. This is a hard episode to rate because I think it just connects so well with the last one. It's hard to sort of separate it. And I don't remember what I give the last one, so that does make it a little harder. I think I'm gonna have to go 8.5. I think it's a good 8.5. I feel like there's very little I would change. I think that's it. But I mean, I really have like very little complaints. Like, it's a great episode. I think it deserves to be remembered a lot more than it really is, or talked about at least.
I think I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10 because I really, really enjoyed this episode and I forgot how good it is. I mentioned it before. I think it kinda pales in comparison with the season 1 and season 3 mid-season 2-parter. But this is a fucking good episode. Like, I really, really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the visuals, I enjoyed the story, I enjoyed the team moments, whether they were together on screen or if it was just like cut together nicely. But yeah, I think for similar reasons that you said, Sam, I'm not gonna give it a 10 because of, yeah, the lack of Taylor's involvement with any of the fighting, or just she's just like the only time that she contributes something, not that you have to contribute something, is in the beginning when she says, oh, there's another hive. But yeah, otherwise I like that, like just the feeling of like we're a team. I think it really got through again. And yeah, 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback off of your score, Ash, and say 9 out of 10 too. For similar reasons, I feel like the episode really showcased certain characters really well. Like, John was really fun this episode. Ronon was really fun this episode. Rodney was really fun this episode. Carson, too, was great. Ford, especially at the end, was awesome. And again, that sense of team and all for one and one for all-ness that I love from Stargate was definitely there. It was exciting. It was funny. It was sad. But yeah, I just wish that our girls had something more to do. And we had a bit more closure when it came to Ford, because we know this is his last true appearance, like, as himself. So yeah, 9 out of 10.
We made it, gang. We made it. Yeah, next week is going to be the mid-season wrap-up, so be sure to tune into that as we discuss the first 10 episodes of season 2, which is crazy. We made it this far.
Yeah.
Yeah, and be sure to check out all of our social media links down below in the description box. You can find our personals and our Jumping Puddle accounts all there as well. Feel free to like shoot us a message or anything, or to see what we're up to on our day-to-day lives. Thanks for hanging out with us today.
Bye.
Bye. I didn't realize it was over. No.
We're keeping that in.
All right, you clowns, listen up. I don't often get a chance to say this, so savor it. Good work, boys and girls. Let's go home.